Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about career paths for non-scientists, and what I mean by that is a wide variety of jobs outside of the realm of scientists or doing like environmental science specific work. So these jobs are going to be more focused around all different disciplines, jobs basically that work with the environment in all sorts of unique ways. I'm going to talk about job ideas and career paths that you can start thinking about if you're not sure what you want to do or you're transitioning away from a career path into the environmental world, and kind of where those jobs work. And I'm going to talk about what kind of degrees or education or background you need to go down that career path. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So job number one is environmental economist. So environmental economists apply the principles of economics in an environmental context. Some examples of the work environmental economists might do is quantifying the damage from an oil spill to, bring a polluter to court. Quantifying those non-quantifiable things that are inherent on the planet it's a very interesting field of study. So if you are more math and economics minded, this might be a path for you to go down. Typically environmental economists might work for consulting companies or governments, probably a little bit less commonly seen in industry as well. And typically from the research I've done, it looks like you're going to require a higher level degree in economics. So you're going to want to probably go down the grad school route, but in an environmental economics or economics context. Job number two is environmental lawyer. So I've talked about environmental lawyer a few times before on some of my other videos. Environmental lawyers work in the sector of environmental law as it relates to water quality, air quality, species at risk protection, basically anything, that we have laws on in the environment. Polluters or industry or companies are gonna have to follow those laws, and a lot of times those cases get brought to court. So if you're an environmental lawyer, you're probably working for maybe government, maybe a consulting company, maybe a law firm, probably most likely an environmental law firm. I think that's quite common, or directly for industry on behalf of that industrial sector that you are defending. Now, as you might expect, environmental lawyer does require a law degree. You're going to be at a higher level of education there, but going down the law route rather than the science route. Social media influencer. So the way that social media influencer has to do with the environment is you are creating environmental content. So you're making Instagram posts, YouTube videos, TikTok to inspire the public to care and preserve the environment. So this is actually something you can make a living on, and you don't need a degree necessarily to do this. You just need to be really good at content creating and monetizing that content, which can be trickier than it sounds. But you're typically working for yourself, and some examples of some environmental influencers who have a pretty big following that are monetizing it and making a living off of it is Shel Bisley on YouTube. I'll leave a link to her channel below, and also Levi Hildebrand, who I will also leave a link to below. Next job is nonprofit administrator. So nonprofit administrators usually work in leadership roles in nonprofit organizations. And since this is an environmental career video, it would really be like an environmental nonprofit or for a cause, that you care about related to the environment. So nonprofit administrators manage all the different parts of running a nonprofit. So this is where a wide variety of degrees can come into handy. So if you are managing the finances for a nonprofit administration, then you might want more of a finance degree, versus if you are managing the human resources for a nonprofit administration, you're going more towards like the HR type of path. So this could be good if you have an existing degree and you're trying to transition into the environmental world. Starting to look at your standard business administration jobs, but at an environmental company, is going to help the environment. Nonprofits need these sorts of people to help run their nonprofit. So this could be a really good path for someone with an existing degree. The next job is environmental planner. So environmental planners work with consulting companies, governments, industry as well sometimes. Environmental planners will take environmental regulations and environmental principles and interpret them into solutions for whoever they're working for. And that's quite broad language, but environmental planners can have a science degree, but environmental planners don't always need a science degree, especially if you're working in fields that the science part of it isn't as relevant, but more of the environmental management perspective. So environmental planners often work in offices and work closely with the clients that they are representing. Similar to environmental planner, the next job is sustainability planners. Sustainability planners use knowledge of sustainable principles to help businesses, generally businesses or governments, be more sustainable with their products and their initiatives. So this is becoming more and more common. There's even some companies that have chief sustainability officers at a high level, just to help the business make sure it's holding on to those sustainable principles and creating a sustainable path forward as more and more consumers are demanding that products be sustainable. So a lot of companies just don't have the knowledge of how to do that. So they hire sustainability consultants or sustainability planners with their company to help them guide the future of how they're going forward in a more sustainable way. Now, this one typically requires some sort of background in sustainability, but it can be all about how you market yourself. And this is kind of the trick with honestly a lot of these jobs, is that it's not necessarily about getting an exact degree. It's about how are you going to show your clients or the company that you know about sustainability. Maybe it's lived experience. Maybe it's running your own business and being more sustainable. However you can get that experience in education and market it well will be the best path forward for this career. Next job is community/Indigenous engagement coordinators. So this one could be working with Indigenous nations, but it could also just be working with communities in general. So I wanted to leave it a little bit more broad, so it's more applicable in different countries. Coordinators will work with communities in a variety of environmental contexts. So an example of this is, say that a government is going to be implementing a new wildlife policy that may have an impact on, traditional Indigenous hunters. So that government might want to hire an Indigenous engagement coordinator to go and meet with the communities, meet with the hunters, meet with the elders, the chief, and discuss the impacts that this policy is going to have on them and design a solution so that it is fair for everyone moving forward. That's just an example of what you might do. A lot of times with this job, there also can be a wide variety of backgrounds. And I know this one firsthand because a lot of my friends actually do this job, and some of them are coming from the educational route. So they're learning a lot about, engagement and Indigenous relations and community engagement from school. But there's also a lot of people I know who learn this stuff from lived experience. It might be more just from your knowledge and your non-degree education with your community. So there can be a wide variety of backgrounds that do this job. Next job is pollution control officer. So pollution control officer will typically work in oil spill management, response, and cleanup. So this one could have a diploma or a background in environmental science, but I included this because it could also be an enlisted officer with Coast Guard, for example, and might not necessarily need a degree background. There are also a variety of pollution control roles and within that landscape that don't require a science degree. Environmental studies degrees are quite common, or sometimes a lot of people just don't have any degrees at all, or degrees in environmental management. Military is also a good one to transition into this career because it has a lot of overlap, military and emergency operations. So that could be another option if you're coming out of the military. So this next job is a little bit, I don't want to say it's a new field because it's really not, but environmental justice advocate. So this one is certainly not new. People have been defending their land against environmental injustice for a long time. However, a lot of people are really making a career out of it in this modern day with social media and the rising, visibility of environmental justice, the need for environmental justice, and the need for people who are advocating and defending, their community or whoever they're representing against polluters or industry that is actively harming their community. Environmental justice advocates might work on social media. They might work for environmental nonprofits, or they might work directly with an impacted community to highlight the needs and the voices of the community that is facing this injustice. They might also work in environmental education and, working directly with community members to help plan and organize paths forward to make their community safer from climate change. That could be an example of one. A lot of ones I'm thinking about too are organizations that inspire folks from that community to enter environmental scientist type of jobs or environmental law type of jobs. And so a lot of that can actually be education and community engagement. Next job is landscape architect. Landscape architects design outdoor spaces, and if you want to go down the more ecologically friendly route of landscape architecture, designing outdoor spaces that benefit people and the environment, designing parks that are sustainable, for example, not just your standard lawn, like creating native plant gardens, all sorts of things that landscape architects can do. And landscape architects can work often for landscaping firms. They might run their own company. That can be quite common. They might do consulting. So I include this one because I'm actually going to hire someone to help me with my yard, because I want to make my residential space more sustainable, and I want to plan. I want someone to go in and create a design and a map of my space, help me design how to do a more sustainable yard, for example. So they can work in the residential context, but they can also work like with larger developments as well. The next job is urban planners. Urban planners with a focus on environmental sustainability help create and design environmentally friendly cities and communities. Urban planners often work for government, and you often need some sort of educational background, like a bachelor's degree in urban planning or sustainable planning as well. There's quite a few degrees now that you might see in that realm. And the last job is policy analyst. Policy analysts often work for government, and they might analyze or write environmental policy. So this one's going to tie pretty closely in with a lot of the other environmental planning or maybe engagement coordinator jobs that you might see. So policy analysts often work for government and often have a wide variety of backgrounds. It depends on the type of policy that you're writing, but you could also go down the policy route if you're more of the humanities-minded person, but you still want to get involved with creating policy that helps protect the environment. All of the jobs that I presented have a wide variety of salary ranges, which is why I actually didn't include salaries on this one, because oftentimes if I do, it's wildly incorrect for many cities. So if you want to find out what each salary range is for the job, I would recommend going on Glassdoor or a similar website that has salaries reported anonymously and search that in your actual city, because the salaries in New York City or the salaries in Toronto are going to be vastly different than like the American Midwest, for example. So I don't want to mislead anyone with salary ranges. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to see more environmental videos or videos about living a more sustainable lifestyle, you can go ahead and subscribe to my channel down below. And I have a lot of videos about my life as a wildlife biologist and building a more sustainable home and yard for myself. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys next time. Bye.